In this model, we'll look at two important language arts strategies. Subvocalize as you read. This means listening to how the words sound in your head as if you're reading them aloud. This is the easiest way to detect grammar mistakes. You might not know a rule, but you can usually hear that something is incorrect. We'll also talk about how shorter or more concise answers are usually the best. When in doubt, pick the answer choice that has the fewest words. Let's look at our first sample question. Which of these expresses the idea most clearly? We'll read each answer choice aloud and see if we can hear which one sounds most correct. In order to hear her favorite musician perform, 50 miles it was that she drove. That sounds like how Yoda speaks in Star Wars. That's not how we usually talk, so let's eliminate that option. She drove 50 miles in order to hear her favorite musician perform. Sounds right. Let's check the others. She drove to hear her favorite musician perform 50 miles. Perform 50 miles? That doesn't make sense. Her favorite musician performed, and she drove 50 miles in order to hear him perform. I can't hear anything particularly wrong with that, so let's keep it in the running. Now we've got it down to B or D. They both sound correct. How are we going to choose? This is when we use the second strategy. When in doubt, choose the more concise answer. In other words, the shortest. B is shorter than D. Let's read D again and see if we feel okay about eliminating it. Her favorite musician performed, and she drove 50 miles in order to hear him perform. Sure enough, there's something very repetitive here. They've used the word perform twice and said something that's already been stated once in the earlier part of the sentence. So that's probably too long, too wordy, or too repetitive. We'll double check one more time to make sure B sounds correct. She drove 50 miles in order to hear her favorite musician perform. Sounds good to me. Let's look at one more example. Choose the group of words that best completes the sentence. Before planting the seeds, watering the ground first, that was extremely important, for Bob was certain. That sounds kind of wordy to me. I don't think that's going to be the correct answer. Before planting the seeds, the ground was well watered. Bob had to make sure. That's better, but it still sounds kind of strange. We'll leave it for now and check out the other answer choices. Before planting the seeds, watering the ground well was the first step for Bob to do. Well, that definitely sounds better than B, so I think I'll eliminate this. Let's try D. Before planting the seeds, Bob first watered the ground. Well, that sounds perfectly acceptable. Let's read C and D one more time and see which one sounds best. Before planting the seeds, watering the ground well was the first step for Bob to do. Or, before planting the seeds, Bob first watered the ground. Once again, the shorter or more concise answer sounds better. There's no reason to use all these words when we can simply say, Bob first watered the ground. That gets the point across with as few words as possible. What's great about these two strategies is that you don't necessarily have to know all of your comma rules or your semicolon rules in order to have a pretty good shot at getting the question right. Obviously, during the actual test, you won't be able to read out loud, but you can still read under your breath quietly in a way that lets you hear in your head how the sentence would sound if you were speaking it aloud. You will have to learn some grammar for this test, but you can get away with these strategies for many of the questions.